Good morning. How is everybody in the sing space? My name is Line Hilton, and I'm going to be carrying on with my vocal health discussion. So in the first two sessions, I looked at what's the vocal anatomy look like, and then we looked at what sort of things can go wrong. And today I wanted to look at various strategies and delve into some of these strategies that we can use to help our voice when we're getting back to recovery. So good morning, Nicole. Hi, Sarah. So the fact is that as singers, we might get injured. And in fact, we're definitely going to, at some point, experience some kind of vocal health issue. Just a common cold is going to have an impact on your voice and ability to get it working accurately and in your control, being able to pitch and access all your range, etc. You might find when your vocal folds are slightly swollen, maybe you're just reacting to a bit of pollen, and suddenly now your transition is a problem, or you just can't get clear notes. You're getting sort of huskiness. I was working with someone just the other day, actually, who was getting very frustrated with herself. I said, well, you can't get frustrated with yourself. Your voice at the moment is a little bit puffy because she just gone from one country to another. Also, she's starting a very big job very soon, and so she's feeling a bit stressed about learning all the repertoire, etc. So there's a bit of tension going on there. And you just let yourself settle. Don't blame your voice. Nurture it. Give it what it needs. Give it the care that it needs. Work it the way it needs to be worked. Make sure that you're supporting it, because honestly, it is trying to do its very best at all times. And sometimes, just like with any other part of our body, we're tired, or we're just feeling a little unwell, or there's some other issues going on. Maybe there's anxiety or tension or stress. Maybe we have some underlying health issues. And so our vocal folds will be impacted. So when you're getting ready to get back into singing, depending on what's happened before, so if you've had to see an ENT and speech therapist, and a vocal rehabilitation coach, I always recommend that you wait until they give you the go-ahead to get back up and running to start your singing. And then you go to a singing teacher who understands how to get to habilitate your voice back to its normal working order. Now, sometimes we do actually acquire certain behaviors and habits, especially if we've had a long-term injury, and we might start doing some compensatory things in terms of the way that we coordinate our voice. And so we might actually need to retrain or remind the voice actually how to do it. I remember hearing a story from an SLT in the States that he'd been working with a singer who had nodules for quite some time. Anyway, they eventually managed to get surgery, and then when he was working, because he was an SLT and a vocal coach, he was working with the voice, getting it back to rehab. It was still doing many of the things that it did before surgery. And what he realized was actually this was just the compensatory habits that this person was continuing, and they had to address that and then reestablish the positive and correct habits. And that took a little bit longer than he anticipated, because he thought, oh, well, the nodules aren't there, so now we can get back to vocalizing. So it's also worth realizing that actually we can set up compensatory, just like we do, if you've got a sore back or you've got an injured knee, other parts of your body, muscles and joints will start to take that weight, and we might start to create issues in those areas because we're using them incorrectly. Same thing can happen in our voice. So some things to make sure that you're strategizing well post-vocal injury or illness. So the first point of call, if you're having any kind of treatment, medical treatment, is to get the go-ahead to get back to singing. And then the next one is to find someone to help you. So find someone who's got an understanding of vocal health and the anatomy and physiology, and helping somebody get back to fitness, vocal fitness. So incorporate physical and vocal warm-ups. Don't just think about voice. We need to think about voice as a whole body experience, and we need to make sure that we're warming ourselves up from top to bottom. Start slow and steady. So don't go straight back into the kind of workload that you had before your injury or illness. Just start to incorporate some of the SOVTs, move slowly, check in regularly with your voice, with yourself, with someone else, to just make sure things are moving along at the right pace and without causing any further issues. And just increase your workload, and that means the way you use your voice when you're speaking and singing, when you're working, repertoire, all of those. Just think about doing incremental workload increases. And that also incorporates in terms of range. Quite often I'll get people to toggle, so rather than just going straight into an exercise. Can you hear the piano, please? Can you let me know? So if you're doing an exercise and your top note that you want is a G5, rather than just going straight into G5, then maybe start, lower. So say we're starting around G, great, thanks. So G3, and then on this long scale, the top note is the fifth, so it's the D5. So you might do this. And then you go back down one, up one, and now another one. And then back down. And you can go all the way back down to where you started, or you can just go back a couple and then creep up again and then go one more note higher. So I call that toggling. So we toggle to and fro until eventually you get to your G5, but checking in with where's your voice. And that doesn't matter what scale you use. You can take that principle and do it each time. Also, when it comes to sustain, so like for instance, with the exercises I use quite often, I'll do a straight ahead arpeggio, and then I'll add a repeat at the top, and then I'll go to a sustain, a repeat and sustain, and then I'll go straight to sustain. Now I'm just doing this all, as example for you, but actually you're going to be taking this, a little bit at a time. So you might find that actually this is all you need to do in the first session when you go back to singing again. And then the next day you might do the repeat to sustain and see how your voice feels. And then a couple of days later, you might then go straight into sustain from that exercise. So this is what I'm meaning about increasing workload incrementally. So doing it day by day or practice session by practice session, might even be week by week, so just depending on what it is that you're trying to achieve. So the same with flexibility, articulation, and vocal qualities. And in particular, I'm talking about very extreme vocal qualities such as belt, or if you're a metal singer and you use scream, growl. Actually, gospel also uses it, and sometimes also in rock. So those kind of extreme sounds which increase the workload significantly for the vocal folds and the larynx, you want to be easing your way into that. So making sure that you're laying a really good foundation first of warm-ups, and then steadily increasing the strength and the sustainability and the flexibility, and then going into those harsher vocal qualities. Not harsh, that's not the right word, but more weighty vocal qualities. Make sure you're factoring in breaks. So you might start initially with only doing 3 minutes. Take a break of a minute, check in with your voice. And I always ask people to count just 1 to 10, check in, how's your voice feeling? So if you've done that exercise with me, or maybe we haven't done it. Sorry, I've done this so many times, I can't remember where I've done it. I always get people to count from 1 to 10 before they start doing their straw exercises. And let me know if you've had a bunch of different straw exercises given to you. So I'll say count 1 to 10, then do your straw exercises, maybe 3 to 4 minutes. Now count 1 to 10 again and compare. So you're listening for, how does it feel? Does it feel consistent? Does it feel comfortable? Does it feel like you've got control? We're listening for pitch. Does it sound like you're below your normal speaking pitch or above your speaking pitch, or just in a comfortable, optimal speaking pitch range? Quite often it'll, after doing SOVTs and straw, your speaking pitch will rise. And actually quite often I'll say that, you know, this is probably your optimum area where your voice should be sitting. So my voice is a little bit low at the moment. You know, first part of the day, I've only done a little bit of talking. I haven't done any vocal warm-ups, but I should probably be up another semitone to a tone. So, yeah, counting. So checking in, how's it feel? What's the pitch? How does it sound in terms of tone quality? Is it hoarse? Is it breathy? Does it feel like you're having to make a lot of effort and you're pressing and forcing things out? You know, what's going on with the sound? And then quality, you know, is it consistent throughout, or does it have breaks in places? Do you feel as though you've got control throughout the range? So checking in with your voice, how it feels with those breaks. So as I said, you might start with just a few minutes, then have a minute break. Then you might extend to doing 4 minutes and then 5. And when you're coming out of injury, this minute is really meaningful. You know, don't go, I'm going to do 10 minutes and then tomorrow I'm going to do 20 minutes and then the next day I'm going to do 30. No, just go up a minute or a couple of minutes at a time and be checking in all the time. And make sure you're also giving yourself psychological support. That might mean meditation or mindfulness or talking to someone, getting counseling. And certainly if your injury or illness has some sort of psychological underlying cause, such as stress or anxiety, then you need to be addressing those issues. So any questions so far? Hi, Alice. Hi, Anne. Hi, Jody. Hi, Angela. Hope I haven't missed out anyone. All right. So the next thing is looking at specific strategies. Oh, excellent. Great. I'm glad you've got that. Yes. So I don't need to go into those kind of exercises. So here are some other strategies. So you've got your SOVT exercises that I'm sure you've done, like lip trills, tongue trills, if you can do them. M, creaky M. Now I use 2 types of M. There's the M that starts at the vocal folds. So usually I get that by doing a little glottal stop, like a little ha, and then going to M, ha, and you should feel a vibration here at the larynx. And then the second M is much more around the lips. It's more forward. So that's the M that we often get when we say the word hum, hum. So we're getting much more buzz on the lips. And it depends very much what I'm trying to achieve as to which one I'll use. But when it comes to working with the vocal folds and getting them back up and running, I tend to go for the one that works directly at the vocal fold level. I feel like that M sound, especially if we do that M with a little creak in there, is sort of like massaging the vocal folds. So vocal fold closure can be done by just doing a little ha, and making sure we've got nice neutral low larynx, that we're going straight to the closure. We're not spending too much time on the h side. We can actually do it without doing a h. We can just do ah, if you can get that closure, if you've got that control. But sometimes if someone's never really had to think about controlling their vocal folds, I'll just get them to do that little karate chop, ha, or That's another one which gets nice balanced vocal fold closure. It means that the vocal folds are closing on the vertical and on the horizontal, and they're now in the right position for the sound. So we get ha, we get a nice full sound because all of the TA is engaged. So in order to help that, we can also use something like a TheraBand. Now there's a few caveats to using the TheraBand. Start with a lighter strength. I get people to roll the TheraBand around their hand like this, and then they need to tuck their elbows in right by their side and then bring the shoulder blades into the spine. This is really important, as well as making sure that the arms are horizontal to the ground. So this is the starting position. And as you create your sound, you might do a ha, and as you go higher, you may pull out, or you might start in that pulled out position. Now, we don't need to, this is not about strength or anything like that. This is just about helping the interarytenoid muscles close through the synergistic action of muscles. So all we're doing is just a little bit of pull, enough to just give that extra support. So therabands are really good. So you could do that on an on an ah, any time when you feel like you're getting more breathy than you want. So you start with closed vocal folds, and using that creaky M. Play around with that and see whether that helps. We can get that same effect by pressing against the wall with our hands at shoulder height, and we're pushing the wall away, but we're not bending our elbows, and we push sort of as if we're really trying to push that wall away. So that will help once again with the interarytenoids through that synergistic work. Another option is to sit in a chair where you can sit nice and straight with good alignment, with the back that's well supported, your legs just sitting nicely with the 2 feet on the ground at sort of hip distance apart. And then you grab the underneath the seat of the chair and you go to pull up. Let's see, I can't do it on that. So basically you're imagining that you're trying to pull the chair up under you as you're in that seated position. Don't overdo it. Just, my caveats here are just go gently and just add a little bit of pressure, just enough that you notice that your vocal folds are closing better. And then hand press is going into the prayer position. So once again, shoulder blades back into the shoulders. The hands are here at the sternum. So the heel of the hand should be at the sternum level. And then you're pressing in as you do the sound. So making sure you're only using the forearm for this pressure. You don't want your shoulders involved. That's not helping. And in fact, that's going to cause problems here. So there are a bunch of ways that you could incorporate into the various exercises that you do that will help with vocal fold closure if that's what you need. If you have excessive tension, self-massage. So has someone taken you through some self-massage strategies? Let me know. I often recommend the vibrant voice technique using a massager. So this is actually a vibrator. Yes, it's one of those kind of vibrators. But what I like about this is that we can, because this particular one and any ones that are these sort of smaller ones, you can really use those to dig into any muscles, and you're not going to hurt yourself or cause any kind of damage. So you use that to as a sort of a way, because the other ones are just too strong. These ones are very good for the throat area. And there's a whole bunch of different places that we can use to help release tension in the different areas that we often get tense as singers. And then the other thing I like using this for is to help massage the vocal folds by vibrating them excessively through, well, it's not excessive, but in an extra way. So I'll do and you get that sort of double pitch there. And I'll just go sliding, and then I might do and I've really noticed that anyone with vocal folds that are a little bit swollen, doing a couple of minutes of that can really help to eliminate that extra fluid that we have in the in the interstitial fluid that sort of hangs around in the lamina propria. So that's the vibrant voice technique. And then, of course, getting help from a physio, osteo, or chiro who is trained in vocal massage or laryngeal massage. So you need to make sure you're going to someone who is either recommended by another medical person or who you know has had that training, because there you can do damage if you don't know what you're doing. Right, so another therapeutic strategy that comes from SLT is the reverse fry. So this is when we, instead of we're frying with exhale, we fry with an inhale. And this is really useful if you're feeling quite a bit fatigued after talking a lot or singing. And you don't do hours of it, you just do a few minutes, and you might revisit it, a couple of times in a half hour. And so you're just doing where you're sucking in the air over the loose vocal folds coming together. And you don't need to have any pitch because it's fry, which is pitchless. And then, of course, there's our straw exercises. You might start with prosody exercises where you're just doing like talking syllables. And I like to go through the different aspects of your range, upper, middle, lower, and then you might apply that to scales. You might do sirens, revving, reverse laughs. You're just wanting to work your vocal folds to start the certainly the oscillation happening with the on the epithelium layers and the lamina propria layers, but also we're starting to engage the ligament, getting it stretched and warm up, ready to get into singing sounds. Right, Stempel exercises, I'm going to take you through that in a moment, but it's also worth thinking about your mindset. Are you stressed? Are you tense? Are you anxious? And if so, what kind of strategies are you applying to help mitigate these things or to undo the harm that they can do? Any kind of tension or stress or anxiety is going to cause tension in the body. It's going to make our muscles tense, and eventually that will have an impact on our voice. If you're not expressing what you need to express, if you're not talking about the things that you really should be talking about, then you're going to be holding those back. And quite often that tension ends up sitting here in the throat. So it might mean that you need to go and get some counselling. The best port of call there is, first of all, your GP, if you don't have anyone locally that you can access. Also, BAPAM, the British Association of Performing Arts Medicine, will have recommendations. They have lots of different types of therapists, psychologists, clinical hypnotherapists, all sorts of people who can help you with that kind of work. Put things into perspective. It might mean that you have a discussion with a friend who you know is going to help you get more real about things and recognize that actually you're catastrophizing or that you're focusing on the negative and not the positive. Maybe it's about journaling. A lot of people find journaling, myself in particular, very helpful to put things into perspective. And I've recently created I've actually named my negative talk personality, and I've given them a name. And so I talk to them in my journal, say, "Hey Bernadette, this is blah blah blah," and then I also sort of talk about, well, when you're being Bernie, you're being really supportive and my cheerleader, you're reminding me of the good things, so can you just be my Bernie friend? Yeah, so there are different ways that you can journal. Some of it is just about stream of conscious and getting it all out so that it's not sort of swimming around your head. And if you don't like writing, you might actually just record it. Sometimes just saying it, recording it. You don't have to listen to it. You can just delete it once it's out of your head. But we just need to do something with that, those voices that go round and round. Janet says, wow, so much in here already at 20 minutes. The vocal closure discussion has added insight to exercise for giving lessons, and then a whole lot. Oh, thanks, Janet. Really pleased. So Nicole, the best self method. No, the journaling, I picked that up actually from Morning Pages in The Artist's Way, and also from the Morning Miracle. So yeah, setting yourself a time. Like I think with Morning Pages, it's 3 pages every morning. With the Miracle Morning, it's a time frame that you've set. So you do. There's 5 ritualistic things that you do in the morning. They're not ritualistic; they're just little routines. And there's like the meditation, journaling, exercise, reading, and something else. I can't remember what the 5th thing is. And so you might say, I'm going to do 5 minutes of each, or you might do 10. It depends how much time you have. Yeah, so I use that in my coaching program, and it has been really effective for people. Getting a routine, I think, helps us get to perspective. And I think right now everybody's feeling like they're not very in control of all the changes that are going around. I've just made a post about that actually on Instagram. It's like there's so much going on, and for those who know me or have seen me before, you will have noticed that I've had my hair cut off. And that was me going and saying, I need to change something that I have control over. And apparently, according to a hairdresser I know, it's quite common for women to, if things are happening around them that they don't have any control over, to do something like getting all the hair cut off. Yeah, so I feel like, at the moment, there's so many changes and things happening that we're not in control of. So we need to gain back that power. And I think doing a morning ritual is one way, having something which you're in control of, that you can decide what and how much and when, that kind of stuff. Anyway, going off piste here. Yeah, so awesome, Sarah. Yeah, thinking of dyeing mine pink. Yeah, it's a lovely color actually. Someone I work with, she does hers pink. Okay, so practice strategies. So rather than just going with the anxiety and stress, is like putting into some sort of process, a regime of practice, making it something that you write out. Now, if you're like me and you don't like routine, then it's okay to factor in non-routine as well. So I know myself well, and so I know that when I need to do something or get somewhere and need to build up strength or stamina or get fitter or do something, I have to have variation, and I also have to have a place where I can go, I can choose when to do that, rather than saying at 8 o'clock every morning I have to do that. So you know yourself best. Work around, if you were working with someone else and trying to help them make changes, then you would notice that actually if this person likes routine, or this person doesn't like routine, or this person likes having a buddy, or this person likes doing it by themselves. Start to look at yourself a little bit more objectively in terms of what works for you, and then create practice strategies that work around your personality and, of course, your schedule. And that is also attached to it emotional context of like, why are you doing this? What's it mean to you? And what does it mean when you get the results? And how will your life be? And as well as, getting help or an accountability buddy. So vocal health advice, obviously there's people that you can pull on here through the singing space, but there are also other places like BAPAM, there's the Voice Care Centre. You might find that you have an ENT speech therapist that you've seen before that you can access. There's the Vocal Health First Aid course. There's a bunch of different places you can go to get this information. When I first started out, this was very difficult to find this information, and I had to figure it out pretty much myself. And I was fortunate because I came from a medical background, so all of this stuff wasn't foreign language to me. But I can imagine, that it can be quite challenging if you've not had that background. But now there are a lot of people out there who can help explain these things in a way that help you understand and feel comfortable. So the Stempel exercise is another functional exercise that I give to my singers that I'm working with to rehabilitate them back to singing. If it's something that interests you, I can send you the PDF. Just email me info@linehilton.com. Line, if you're not sure. So this is a series of 4 exercises that you do every day, and which will help to ease your voice back in. So you're going to use a sustained E for as long as possible on an F4 above so it's the F above middle C, and below if it's for men. And then you just produce this tone as softly as possible. Now, this can be really challenging, especially if you're a belter. So it's E, and it has a very forward focus. It's, the vocal folds are closed. They're not nasal, but they're sort of in that area. And we want to sustain that sound for as long as possible without any breaks. So you could test yourself first by doing a sustained S to see how long you get that. And then you want to have your E as long as that, and then going up to 40 seconds if you can. So when we're recovering from voice injury, this generally is quite challenging, and you might find you can only do 10 or 12 seconds. Don't worry about it. Just do that as Stempel has recommended, and then you'll find over a period of several weeks that will start to build and you'll get longer sustain. The next one is gliding from your lowest to your highest on the word knoll, a lip trill or tongue trill. I prefer to use the sound, so I usually get people to do sort of no, and you just go up and down. You just go up the first time. Sorry, I did down as well, but it's just up the first time, very soft and forward focus again. Don't worry about any breaks because they will start to iron out as you go through. Then the next one is taking that same sound from the highest comfortable note and coming back down. The fourth exercise is more of an adductory sort of exercise. So you're sustaining musical notes on C, D, E, F, G. So usually I recommend that women start on C4, men start on C3. And you want to hold each one as long as possible on the sound O without the D. So O. So you're trying to get a sympathetic vibration on your lips as you do this. Now, there's a whole regime to doing this in terms of how many times you go. I think you go through it twice. Once in the morning, once in the evening for the first week, and then it's once, and then you just do it once in the day. It sort of reduces, and it takes about 4 weeks to go through the whole process. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I'll send it to you. So you, I hope, have already started to put together some sort of a kit bag, like if you're going on tour or if you're working, stuff that you know you have to have with you. Water. I think we all know we need water, she says as she takes a drink. So water, warming up, cooling down regime. So it's not enough to just warm up. We need to warm down as well. Straw. Now, get different size straws. So we've got those very large ones that it can be used in a bottle. Then we've got these very small ones as well. Just depends on your vocal health condition. When you're recovering from vocal injury or illness, then you use the larger ones. And then you also, I would always recommend that you also extra sort of support or back pressure using water. This is a really great way to make sure you're easing your voice into singing. Nebulizer or steamer. So you can either use something like this. So this is just a facial steamer that has a nasal mask as well, and that's just with water. Now, the problem with steam is that the water particles are quite large, and water isn't as permeable to the epithelial layer of the vocal folds as normal saline is. So I usually recommend that professional singers buy and invest in a nebulizer. They come much smaller than this nowadays. This is a Bura. There's also Omeron. I don't recommend, Philips is okay, but I tend not to recommend any other makes because quite a lot of those very cheap ones come from China, and sometimes, first of all, they're not very well made and they're not accurately made, and sometimes the electronics in them are actually faulty. So this is my recommendation, that you make an investment into a well-known brand. So you use normal saline here. This is normal saline 0.9%. This goes into a little container, and then when it turns on, you'll get a very, very fine mist. It's ultrasonic. It's broken down ultrasonically. And the normal saline and the size of the particles when they're broken down ultrasonically have been shown with a study that Ingo Tietze did with some other people to be much more permeable and beneficial in terms of hydration for the vocal folds. Right, we want a massager, so this is the one that I was talking about earlier, so we can get rid of tension. Hand sanitizer, I think most of us are carrying these things around anyway, but I've always recommended it in the past. I love Manuka honey, so get the highest strength that you can afford. I usually, if I'm around people who have colds, or if I feel like I'm coming down with a sore throat, then I'll just have a spoonful, then I'll suck on it and just let it slowly sort of coat as much of my throat as possible. Obviously, it's not going on the vocal folds, but it also, as well as its bacterial properties on a superficial level, topically, it also has bacterial elements systemically. Now, myself, and if you're interested in reading it, I've written an article about vocal zones on the BAST, BAST training.com posts, because you hear people say that they're dangerous, and I'm like, oh, why are they dangerous if they've been around for 100 years and people like Tom Jones suck on them all the time, and they were made for a singer called Caruso? How is it that they're dangerous? So I decided to investigate it, and I think a big part of it is the fact that they contain myrrh. So then I went looking down the rabbit hole of, well, where did we, not myrrh, sorry, menthol. Where did the idea come from that menthol was bad for our voices? And I cannot find a single paper or evidence to say that menthol is actually drying. Now, it gives a cooling effect for sure. And I'm sure at copious amounts, it's not good for you, like many things. But in the small, tiny amounts that we have, menthol in many things, from toothpaste through to lozenges, I'm like, okay, so I'm not reading anything here, including sort of the myrrh, which is a essential oil that I believe is actually harmful. I spoke at great length to the Vocal Zone people, and they said the only kind of complaints they've got is like once they got someone saying that they vomited after they took a Vocal Zone, and then when they investigated it further, it turns out that person was hungover. So there was a confounding factor there. And in fact, most of the time people actually give positive feedback. Now, I've actually done a test on it, and I had a husky throat, and I sucked on a lozenge the way that they instruct, and you could hear my voice getting better. And then I did straw, and it got better again. So this is my opinion. Go read it, do your own research. On Guard, First Defense. So On Guard is a essential oil blend that helps to keep the old germs away, and First Defense is used as it may be able to help reduce the chance of you catching a cold when you first start getting the symptoms. You need to also make sure that these things are okay for you and any medical conditions that you have. So essential oils, I'm a particular fan of essential oils, but you need to make sure that you understand how to use them accurately and carefully and in a healthy manner. Carrying a scarf, keeping that area warm, especially in winter. Neomed, so I think this is great for people who have need to be decongested. This is also great for people who have sinus infections, and also when you're recovering from a snotty cold. Earplugs, pillow, sleep mask, because we need to rest and sleep whenever we can. And sometimes people, bring a shawl with them or some little blanket so that you can make yourself comfortable and you can sleep wherever you can sleep, especially if you're on tour. And some sort of meditation app or relaxation app. I love Insight Timer because all of the meditations and guided stuff is free. And there's a whole bunch of different types, from very woo-woo stuff like shaman stuff to just very practical guided mindfulness exercises. Okay, so I've gone over by 12 minutes, apologies. So the first brand of nebulizer I mentioned is Beurer, so it's Beurer, and Omron, OMRON is the other one, and I think Philips also make one that has good reputation. So you may want to look at medical equipment sites, not just Amazon. I think I bought mine from a medical equipment site, and it was cheaper than what I could find on Amazon. But they're around £80 to £120, depending on when you get it. Right, so any questions? I've dumped a lot on you. Hopefully you can revisit the video if you're not sure. If you have any questions afterwards, and if you're watching this recording, then drop me an email, info@linhilton.com. I'm very happy to answer those questions, or, social media, Lynn Hilton. I hope to see, can't remember when my next session is. If you wanted more on vocal health and more specific things, then let me know. I can definitely create something. All right. So also, if you're not sure what to do, if you've got voice issues yourself, or you think you might have voice issues, feel free to drop me an email and I'll give you some advice. I do 30-minute free consultations as well, where I can sort of have a listen and find out a little bit about you and then make recommendation. All right. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Alice, Angela, Sarah, Nicole. Who else has been here? Anne, Jody, and Nicole. I've mentioned Nicole already. Fab and Facebook user. Okay. Yes, exactly. You can watch the replay. So all the best for your singing. Stay in good vocal health. Obviously, we've got winter coming up, so we're going to be much more susceptible. I always feel that what we can do for prevention is much better. I forgot to mention supplements. Vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, magnesium, garlic, B complex, all of those things. So doing whatever we can to build up our immune system so that we don't get sick in the first place, making sure we've got a coach or that we're checking in with our voice to make sure that we're not doing any harm in terms of the way that we're singing. And then if something is going wrong, get it seen to earlier than later. I've worked with so many people who waited too long and then they ended up having problems because they waited too long. More often than not, the sooner you go in, the quicker you can get the issue resolved, and the less likely it is to be something serious. All right, I'll see you later, guys.